YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with another episode of Terrible Take Tuesday, taking a look at some of the terrible or bold takes around the NFL every single Tuesday. You guys been sending these in, and we give you shout-outs. We're going to continue to do that. If you want to send yours in for next week's or whatever episode you want to send one into, you go to our Twitter and you can tweet at me or DM me. I prefer you just tweet at me, but either way. Link in the description for that Twitter. Please follow. Appreciate the support. We're going to continue to grind and reach those next goals. Maybe we can hit 100K by this time next year. That'd be fantastic. Please subscribe to both channels. Check out that podcast. Link in the description for any of these pages that you need. There'll be links down there and in the comments as well. The first terrible take this week is from Ashley David Soden. You can follow him there at his handle. You see it on the screen, the top right. He sent a CTB post, I believe, is on Instagram. They actually made Terrible Take Tuesday last week, and now they have another post. And it was the same concept, the same type of post, but it was for receivers. And this week we got pass rushers. And yeah, the problem last week was that the label elite under the second tier of receivers, a long list of receivers. So I think just labeling elite was the terrible part. Having those receivers in the second tier kind of made sense. It's just having the word elite next to it. And a similar thing happened here. It's the second tier for these people that make these posts, and it's considered elite. So labeling these players elite is pretty bad. You know, it's kind of a problem for me. It's a pretty bad take for me. And this person that sent this to me circled elite and Max Crosby because, yeah, Max Crosby had a really impressive rookie year, but in his second year, really calling him elite. But I actually have more problems than just that. There's actually a really big problem. We'll get to the really big problem in a second. But yeah, you know, just considering, Brian Burns, excellent rookie year, considering a raw prospect and already coming out and playing high level. Yeah, probably need to see more to consider him anywhere near elite. Justin Houston, I just don't think still good, still solid, just doesn't have that same game anymore. So considering him elite, Shaq Barrett had an elite season. Can you consider him elite? Preston Smith, maybe not quite on him. Brandon Graham, really not the same either. But my big problem with this post is Calais Campbell. Because this is pass rushers. These guys are labeled pass rushers. Calais Campbell, to me, he's not a pass rusher, not an edge rusher. He's a defensive lineman that provides, it's kind of a bonus, that provides pressure. He went to the Ravens. He's going to play 3-4 ends. 3-4 end is not an actual pass rusher. He's a defensive lineman that'll get pass rush. So including him on here, and he has played at an end position in the past in a 4-3, which can be considered a pass rusher, but he wasn't with the Jags last year. He won't be with the Ravens this year, so that was kind of a problem for me. I think just labeling this better, having the second tier named elite is kind of what's causing problems here. So the next one actually is the same people's post. Somebody else sent me this one, though. Xander Zupon sent this to me, and this is the bottom tier. This is solid. So I think these people are giving too generous of a label to the second tier, and then kind of having a bottom tier but calling them solid doesn't really make sense to me. So it's tough. It's tough here. I can understand some of these, but having Melvin Ingram and Jason Pierre-Paul, to me, on the bottom tier and just kind of calling them solid, to me, is pretty bad. I think Melvin Ingram, maybe going off of sacks, maybe, but the guy does so much more. He provides enough pressure and sacks as it is, production, I should say, as it is. But, I mean, if you watch the guy play, he helps his teammates so much, too. He plays more than just pass rusher, too. He aligns different spots, kind of that guy that kind of gets in the offense line quarterback's head pre-snap, way more than a solid player to me. And Jason Pierre-Paul, same thing. I mean, he's been very good over the last few years and very impressive, especially coming off injuries. So these guys are just much better than bottom tier. I mean, even a guy like Carlos Dunlap's pretty underrated, I think. So yeah, the rest of them I can understand, but yeah. So another one from that page there, interesting. Next we got from Zeke Gonzalez here. Zico Gonzalez, thank you for sending this my way. Dan Graziano's NFC South quarterback draft. So, yeah, that makes it even more interesting. He's not really ranking the quarterbacks. It's his quarterback draft. That makes it, at first I was like, maybe this isn't too terrible. It's kind of just a bold prediction because sometimes I do that. Sometimes I look, I'm not predicting Matt Ryan to be the best quarterback in this division, but sometimes you can say, well, he was just MVP caliber a few years ago, and he hasn't been able to play at that level since because the offensive line. We expect the offensive line to be better. We expect the team in general to be better. So yeah, I can understand the bold prediction. But I think calling it a draft kind of makes it worse. You're drafting these quarterbacks, and you're choosing to draft Matt Ryan first. And it's tough, seeing Drew Brees at 3. Very good quarterback division. But having Ryan over Brady and Brees and just seeing number 3 next to Drew Brees' name, it's just... And yeah, they're making it a draft. Do you draft Matt Ryan? It's tough. I guess a lot of these guys are aging, and maybe besides Teddy Bridgewater, they're up there in their career. So it's definitely an interesting post. Maybe it's not too terrible because he's just kind of just getting bold and kind of just thinking a step up again from a couple years ago from Matt Ryan. Stop looking at maybe just recently. I can understand that. It's just odd. It's more of an odd post there. Next we got from David Hall. Real simple name for me to not butcher. I feel bad. I feel like I butcher people's names all the time. But Colin Coward's Super Bowl bubble on the Herd, his show. So basically, inside the bubble is the top tier Super Bowl contenders, and then you got some teams just outside. These are the teams that are just missing the top tier Super Bowl contending bubble here. Yeah, this is an odd post. This is an odd take from the Herd here because. Maybe just me, I wouldn't have that many teams in that bubble. I think it's kind of a lazy job that you're doing if you're putting that many teams inside that bubble. Yeah, there's teams, even maybe not even on here, that you can consider somewhat Super Bowl contenders. So I wouldn't be opposed to having a lot of teams on the outside, but I think, being the top tier contenders in the bubble would make more sense to me. I guess that's kind of just opinion, preference, how you want to do it. But there's a lot of teams in there. And the teams on the outside are a little questionable. I think I kind of been on the Broncos train. I think they can be a kind of dark horse Super Bowl team, and I can be on board the Cowboys, kind of equal to that dark horse Super Bowl. And the Bills, the Bills and the Broncos pretty similar. Having the Rams out there is a little questionable. Yeah, I think different people will have different problems with this. To me, it's just. I don't know how, maybe the graphic, how many he has inside of that, that bubble, which I would view top tier, and only 4. I think more teams should be on the outside. Less teams should be on the inside. There almost needs to be kind of 3 levels to this. The Rams being kind of level 2 for this, a little questionable. Yeah, I just don't like. I think it's going to take an easy way. Like, that many teams as the top tier Super Bowl contenders. Like, look, I had this team as my Super Bowl contender. Well, you had. How many teams are in there? 7 teams are in there. I know all those teams and more teams can win the Super Bowl. And then, yeah, probably missing some other teams as well. Especially for the outside. You could talk about the Cowboys or the Packers, perhaps. Other teams could be missing, but that's really not my. That's kind of the guy's prediction. These other teams probably the level 3 that we're not seeing. So I wouldn't call that terrible, even if I would think there's other teams missing that could be in there. Maybe the Titans too. Forgetting about the Titans, the Steelers. There's other teams, but that's not the terrible part. I think just the layout of this. So, interesting one from Colin Coward. Next, we got a post from, I think this is like Watson's Legion, Instagram perhaps, sent in by Kyler Murray for MVP, red season. Andy Dalton if he started, he would go 11-5. Here's another one. To me, this isn't too terrible. This is pretty damn bold, though. Pretty damn bold. And I think a lot of people will think it's terrible. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I think this person's point is that Dalton just hasn't been surrounded by the good offensive line, the good, multiple good weapons, the good coaching, the good defense, solid defense, we should say. He hasn't really been surrounded with it, and he's always kind of been solid, maybe minus last year. He's even led the Bengals to the playoffs at times, hasn't won a playoff game, but he's even got there with all that. The team really wasn't that great. They've had some pretty good teams at times, but not a collection of all those things put together. He really never had, and now he may have it. So if he started, I could see it. I'd say it's very bold. It wouldn't be my prediction, but I actually could see it. The problem is, he's probably not going to start. I think Dak Prescott's going to start. I would be curious to know what their record prediction is with Dak Prescott. You almost get the feeling they think they'll be better with Andy Dalton. I don't know, though. So maybe this is one that's not too terrible. You know, you guys can let me know in the comments. Yeah, I don't put all the terrible posts in here. Some of them might just be bold. I kind of leave that up to you guys to figure out your opinion on if they're, you know, that bad or not, or if you can see it. You know, this is one that I could see. It's just extremely bold. Extremely bold. Next, we got top skill player trios in the NFL by CBS here. Sam Chaim sent this my way here. Appreciate you. And yeah, another one, you know, a lot of them this week that I wouldn't really consider terrible. There's some ones that make sense here. When this person sent it to me, they're you know, saying that, you know, this I think the Ravens maybe a little high. You know, some teams a little high. You know, saying the Vikings could be in here. You know, maybe a Cousins, Cook, and Thielen. I guess about staying healthy there. And then Cousins, you know, playing similar to last year, being better. But yeah, Cook and Thielen were hurt last year. But I could see that maybe more, you know, a better trio than some of these teams. But yeah, I don't know if it's too terrible. Just kind of getting a little bold. Yeah, I guess it just all depends on how are you valuing the quarterback, running back, receiver equally. Or are you kind of getting bonus points if the quarterback's really good? You know, people always have a problem with rookies being in there. I'm not one of those people because you're kind of predicting here. It wouldn't be based on the past if the rookies weren't in there. Yeah, so I don't really have a huge problem. Maybe, yeah, I mean, I you know, maybe I would make it more even. You know, quarterback, running back, receiver. Like if, you know, I wouldn't give bonus points to a team just because they're quarterback. I'll make it even across the board. So looking at the Ravens, very good trio, definitely top 10. But I think Lamar, I don't want to say carries, but yeah, almost kind of carries that a little bit. So I'd put maybe the Packers one higher. I don't know if I'd put the Eagles in this group. Yeah, I am predicting the Eagles to step up this year, be better than people think. I think Wentz will step up a little more. But yeah, we need to mainly see them stay healthy. You know, how it Wentz, Sanders, Ertz. I think there's definitely some better ones out there. You know, Sanders was good as kind of a two-man backfield. How will he be in his second year? Can Wentz stay healthy? Interesting seeing Keyshawn Vaughn. Yeah, the Buccaneers one's interesting in general. Keyshawn Vaughn very well could be their best back, so I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm not really going to say that's bold. It's just kind of interesting. And then Chris Godwin, I actually predicted to have more production this year than Mike Evans. Is he, in general, a better receiver than Mike Evans? That's not really what we're saying here, but he could have more production. So I just thought it was interesting. I'm not really disagreeing at all. I'm actually kind of agreeing. I just thought it was interesting they included Vaughn and Godwin. Steelers, yeah, the health is kind of the question. Big Ben being healthy, James Conner being healthy. We didn't see Big Ben for a whole year. More than that, you know, it's just, you know, it's tough to say, but you kind of expecting Conner to be hurt almost at this point. But not for an entire season. And Smith-Schuster didn't play as good as he did, you know, in the past, but it's probably because he didn't have his quarterback. So maybe I wouldn't put the Steelers in there as well. You know, talk to the Vikings could sneak it. I think the Titans are probably a sneaky one too. Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown, who was absolutely fantastic last year, and I think he'll continue to be. You know, I thought he was my pick for Rookie of the Year last year, A.J. Brown. And remember, he wasn't doing much early in the year because they were trying to ease him in, the rookie in, and they had Mariota. There was no big plays downfield, not a lot of big plays in the passing game in general. So he started going when Tannehill started going. So just think how good he did. Pretty ridiculous. So there's probably other teams you can kind of consider it as well. Here, so definitely an interesting post. And then we got the last one from Wisey here. Again, probably apologize for butchering anybody's name here, but you see the Twitter handle up there. Everyone, we can start a follow train. Everyone can start following each other, and then if you make it on here, you'll get some follows. So totally up to you, but if everybody helps out everybody, it works out. NFL playoff chances. This is actually Sportslime, so this is, you know, kind of Vegas here. And interesting, they pointed out when they sent this my way, the Packers, and that's kind of what I see too. The Packers being, and I talked about this. You can kind of argue both sides with the Packers. You know, the Packers playing the first place schedule now. LaFleur, you know, maybe an offense you can start to figure out. You know, so maybe they're just not as good. You can argue that, even though I'm kind of leaning towards actually Rodgers plays better than last year, which could be scary. But even with that if you don't think the Packers will be that great this year compared to last year, it's pretty low. It's pretty low. And the Bears have a chance to be better. But having the Bears and the Rams ahead of them, and even though they're realistic, even though the Cowboys, Eagles, Vikings, Rams, Bears, even though they're realistic, it's tough to say all of those teams at the same time will be ahead of them. You know, the Vikings at 66.4%. with a lot of changes on their defense versus the Packers at 38.5. I mean, look at the difference there. You can I can't really argue with you if you think the Vikings are winning the division, even though I picked the Packers. I can't really sit here and say you're wrong, but to have that much of a difference, pretty ridiculous. Have all those teams, like I said, I think that the Bears could be better. I don't think the Rams will be better. They could be. Eagles, Cowboys, they could be realistic, but having all those teams at the same time, these people just don't like the Packers for this year. But usually the sports lines, they're not biased, so that's the interesting part there. So they usually don't carry bias. So that's interesting. It's just an interesting post there. The Cardinals are pretty low as well. You're looking at their schedule. I don't think they're taking into account their schedule. So that's pretty interesting. Falcons got a tough schedule, so that makes sense, even though they're better than that. So interesting stuff. Appreciate anybody who sent their posts in, their findings in. We'll continue to do this every Tuesday until the NFL season, so please go to the Twitter and send your entries in. Thanks, everyone, for their support. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Goodbye.